The inside of the hall looked much like the rest of the village. Most of the external building itself was intact, except the lopsided roof. Team Philadelphia had cleared as much of the limbs and organs from the center of the floor as they could, making space for the small, black box of the Spooklink and its surrounding wires. Ada watched near the door and heard a small noise behind her. She turned to see a sober-looking Ryan.
What did I miss?
Ada spread her hands.
You can see it for yourself. I have Castoria and Kinase looking into it at the moment, but we decided we'd have to ask the people themselves to get a better idea.
Makes sense. Senf looks thrilled.
Ryan nodded his head to the quiet young man who stood in the center of the room, looking down at the box grudgingly.
Doesn't he always? I hate doing this to him. Are we about done? Okay, then get your asses out. This is not a show.
The men who had been setting up the box were eager to leave, and they made their way through the nearest doors. Luca Cohen looked around, before reluctantly following them. Ryan stayed, but turned around to face the wall instead. Ada raised an eyebrow at him.
Good manners until the bitter end, is it, Haynes?
He smiled sheepishly at her. Christian didn't say anything, but he threw a grateful glance over his shoulder to Ada.
We can leave too, if you want.
He shook his head, light hair swinging.
I need you.
If something goes wrong. Right.
Christian's mouth tilted upwards at the corners as he attempted a reassuring smile. It didn't work, but Ada tried her best to return it. The young man turned back to the task at hand and took a deep, steadying breath. He muttered a quick prayer in German before removing the top of his uniform and dropping it beside him. Christian touched the metal plate embedded in his chest, then knelt down to pick up the thick cable from the console that lay on the floor. Blood from the tiles soaked into the knees of his trousers.
Has he started yet?
Erin's voice crackled into Ada's ear, making her jump. She hesitated, not wanting to make a noise to disturb the tentative peace that had fallen over the room. Christian plugged the end of the cable into his chest with a loud and definite thunk noise. He flicked the switches on the small box beside him and closed his eyes.
They're hard to find.
Over the years, Ada had become used to his habit of talking out loud during links. It helped him to concentrate.
Hard to find. Their souls are erratic. They're all over the place.
Ada bit her lip with a very real fear that the 2-hour delay had allowed the ghosts to escape.
Find peace, little ones. I've got one.
Christian rocked back on his ankles and his face creased in pain. Ada took a step forward and clenched her fist at her side. After what seemed like an age, Christian drew a long, ragged breath and fell forward onto his knees again with a loud crack. Both Ada and Ryan winced in sympathy at the noise. Christian opened his eyes and wished he had kept them closed. Standing opposite the Spooklink box, amongst all the gore, was a little girl.
God, I hate my job.
Ada cringed. The only spirit that the man could catch was a defenseless and innocent child who had seen nothing coming. Ryan snatched a glance over his shoulder and then snapped his head back to face the wall again. Like all ghosts, she was naked and shone with a pale, snowy light. And, even though she wasn't physically there, upon her arrival, blood had splashed up one side of her left calf. The toes of her other foot sank into a small pile of guts. She didn't seem to notice. The girl, of roughly 7 years, and never to be a day older, tilted her head to one side in a way that reminded Ada of Erin Castoria's same habit. The child looked curiously at Christian's face. He cleared his throat.
What's your name?
Kinui, what's yours?
The jovial, unfamiliar question caught Christian by surprise, and he jerked backwards for a moment.
Chris.
Hello, Chris. That's a cute name.
Hello, Jen. Can I talk to you? It's only for a moment. Then I'll let you go back.
Oh, I see. suppose. You seem nice.
Thanks, Jen. You're a good girl. Do you remember anything about before I called you here? Can you tell me about it?
The girl looked at him oddly.
About how I died, you mean?
Christian nodded, not trusting himself to speak.
Well, that was funny.
She caught Christian's look and gave an embarrassed laugh.
Sorry, not funny, ha. Funny, odd.
How was...
Christian stopped for a moment, whilst Genli's form flickered in the air like an image. She was back in an instant.
Was it... Ada, do you want to do this?
Ada rushed to his side.
Is it hard to keep her steady?
You wouldn't believe.
She nodded.
Okay.
Then she nudged him with the toe of her boot.
And it's Commander Luther to you.
I'm gonna go outside.
Ryan said from the door, before shutting it behind him. The image of Jenny became stronger bit by bit, once Christian stopped talking, until she looked like a real person again, complete with the blood stain up her leg.
Okay, Jen. Was it the aliens?
Jenny nodded.
Yes, ma'am. Only...
The girl paused and looked to the ceiling for a while, thinking.
You know the things they put over the comm? The, awareness ads? The one with all those aliens on, and what to do if you see one, and all those things?
Yes.
Jenny shook her head from side to side, in the enthusiastic way that only children do.
They didn't look like any of those.
Are you sure?
The girl nodded in the same eager way.
I've never seen a ghoulie before, but they didn't look like they do in the comm.
Okay. Okay, that's good, Jenny. You're doing very well.
Am I helping?
You're helping a lot. Do you think you can tell me what the aliens look like? I know it's tricky, but could you give it a go?
Jenny rubbed one foot against the back of her other leg.
Well, to be honest, ma'am, they looked a mess. Really odd looking, even for ghoulies.
Castoria, are you getting this?
Loud and clear, ma'am.
Ada turned back to the cheerful ghost.
They were odd, how?
Jenny shrugged.
Like someone had put a lot of monster parts into a blender, you know? Tentacles here and fangs there. It was almost like they had been glued on or something.
And they killed everyone.
Uh-huh, just like that.
It wasn't the first time that Ada had spoken to a ghost on Christian's behalf, but she was still unnerved by their casual acceptance of death. Christian had explained it to her once, but she couldn't gather the wits to remember it now. She swallowed hard.
Oh, right. Do you know where they came from?
Seemed like they were from nowhere, ma'am. It was pretty quick that they arrived. I don't think anyone saw them, though. I don't live on the border edge.
Okay. No idea where they were going afterwards, I suppose.
Well, I died by then.
Oh, right. Of course.
Are you done?
Ada looked at the child and chanced a glance down at Christian.
Yes, Jenny. I think we're done. Sorry to have kept you so long.
I understand.
You're a very good girl. I'm sorry we didn't get here in time.
I'm glad to help. You're the good guys after all. The heroes.
Christian cleared his throat, still knelt on the floor. Ada took a few steps backwards from him so he could complete the link.
I don't feel like a hero.
But you are, Chris.
Jenny bent forwards and placed an ethereal kiss on his forehead.
You are.
She straightened back up again and waved to Ada, who smiled weakly in return.
Is this the part where I go back and see Mom and Dad again?
Yes, Jen. Forever. I promise.
Jenny clapped her hands together in glee, and the naked girl blinked out of existence, leaving Christian kneeling on the floor.
Well, it's been a long time since we had one that bad. Are you all right?
Christian wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Ada squatted down next to him, looking at the bloody patches on the knees of his trousers.
I meant physically. That was a long time to hold a 2-hour ghost.
Christian took a few deep breaths.
I think so.
Well, I don't. You're not well.
Christian bowed his head, tugging the heavy wire from his chest. He felt Ada's fingertips brush against his skin as she put her hand onto his shoulder and mumbled something he didn't hear.
I'm okay.
Here's your shirt.
Thanks.
I'll get Haynes to take you back to the ship.
I can do it myself.
Yes, I'm sure.